A hidden world of tunnels lies beneath the surface of our planet. These are not simple caves, but vast, intricate networks that suggest a forgotten era of incredible coordination. By the end of our journey, you will see the evidence for a level of ancient collaboration that could fundamentally rewrite our history books. Why would cultures across the globe build such elaborate subterranean structures? And what profound secret were they trying to protect? What does this hidden legacy tell you about the true capabilities of our ancestors? These underground systems represent a monumental category of ancient construction. Think of them not as simple holes in the ground, but as intricate, multi-level complexes carved through solid rock or earth. They are vast subterranean landscapes featuring living quarters, storage rooms, places of gathering, and long, winding corridors that connect entire communities. From the sprawling, multi-level city of Derinkuyu in Turkey, capable of sheltering thousands, to the extensive Khu Khai tunnels in Vietnam, which functioned as hidden villages and supply routes, these networks share a common thread of deliberate, sophisticated design. Their creation demanded more than just manpower. It required a deep understanding of structural integrity to prevent collapses, advanced planning for air circulation to sustain life deep underground, and often intricate water management systems. The very existence of such places forces us to ask a simple yet profound question. What kind of society possesses not just the will, but the unified knowledge to execute projects of this staggering scale? This foundational marvel is only the beginning of the mystery. These eerily similar designs form our first great mystery. Look at the corbelled arch, a simple yet brilliant structure where stones are layered, each one projecting slightly beyond the one below until they meet at the top. This same architectural solution appears in underground sites from the rocky highlands of Peru to the deep caverns of Malta and the subterranean cities of Turkey. These cultures, according to our traditional historical maps, never met. They were separated by immense oceans and thousands of years. So why does the same precise engineering appear in their hidden worlds? It is as if different musicians who never heard each other's music all independently composed the same complex symphony. This stretches the idea of coincidence to its breaking point. The similarities extend beyond arches to the very systems that made these places livable. Sophisticated ventilation shafts that draw fresh air deep underground, ingenious wells that tap into hidden water tables, and even specific types of hidden entryways are repeated across the globe. This is not just about digging a hole, it is about applying a specific, refined set of solutions to the unique challenges of subterranean life. So we are faced with a compelling puzzle. Did these diverse cultures facing a similar universal threat simply arrive at the exact same brilliant answers by chance? Or does this recurring blueprint point to something far more profound, a thread of shared knowledge that somehow connected the ancient world? The walls of these tunnels seem to whisper of a common source, a foundational understanding of how to build safely beneath the earth that was known in lands we consider worlds apart. This global pattern is our first major clue that our story of human history is missing a crucial chapter, one written not in stone monuments under the sun, but in the quiet, consistent darkness below. But the architectural similarities are only one piece of this ancient puzzle. The sheer physical effort required to build these networks presents a second, perhaps even greater mystery. To carve a single room out of solid rock using stone and copper tools is a monumental task. Now multiply that by thousands of rooms and many miles of connecting tunnels. We are talking about the removal of hundreds of thousands, even millions of tons of earth and stone. This was not a matter of simple digging. It was a protracted war against the very ground beneath their feet, fought with rudimentary tools and unimaginable human effort. Think about the practical logistics of such an undertaking. A project of this scale is a chaotic symphony that requires a master conductor. Where did the countless workers sleep? How were they fed and provided with water day after day, year after year? The management of tools, the coordination of shifts, and the critical task of debris removal all had to be perfectly synchronized. Just disposing of the excavated material is a puzzle in itself. Where does one hide millions of tons of rock and soil without creating obvious, telltale mounds on the surface that would betray the secret construction below? This was not a small community digging a root cellar. This was the ancient equivalent of building a subway system or a massive underground fortress, an enterprise that would have required a highly organized, collaborative society with what we would now call advanced project management skills. The construction itself, therefore, is a silent but powerful testament to a level of social organization we rarely attribute to these ancient eras. It hints at a centralized authority or a deeply ingrained cultural unity capable of marshalling a workforce and sustaining a project that could span generations. This level of coordination speaks to a shared, non-negotiable purpose. The immense hardship, the decades of backbreaking labor, all of it had to be for a reason profound enough to justify such a staggering investment. What kind of threat or what deeply held belief could possibly compel an entire society to literally move underground, dedicating centuries to the creation of a hidden world? The answer to that question may lie not in the tunnels themselves, but in the clues they left behind about the world above. Yet the sheer scale of this labor points to a purpose far greater than a simple emergency bunker. If the goal was merely to hide from an invading army, a basic network of concealed chambers would suffice. But what we find are entire subterranean worlds complete with places of spiritual gathering, vast storage for food and goods, and intricate water channels that speak of long-term, sustainable living. This level of investment suggests these were not just shelters for times of crisis, but functioning extensions of the surface world, designed for continuous use. So what other reasons could have driven these societies to build down? One compelling possibility is that these tunnels served as sacred spaces for rituals hidden from the everyday world. The profound silence and total darkness of the deep underground would have created an environment utterly separate from the land above, a perfect setting for ceremonies intended to connect with forces of the earth or the spirit world. Imagine a space designed not for panic but for profound quiet and connection. Another practical theory points to controlled trade. Secret subterranean routes could have allowed for the safe, discreet movement of valuable goods, protecting merchants and their caravans from bandits or harsh weather, effectively creating hidden highways that fueled economies away from prying eyes. Some researchers have even proposed more esoteric ideas, suggesting that certain locations were chosen for unique geological properties, perhaps areas with unusual magnetic fields or acoustic resonances that were believed to hold special significance. While this remains speculative, it highlights the depth of the mystery. The true purpose was likely a combination of many things, a multi-layered answer for a multi-leveled world. These were not merely tunnels, they were a deeply integrated part of the community's infrastructure, reflecting a world where safety, commerce, and spirituality were all interconnected beneath the surface. To understand why they built, we must start to understand how they thought, and what they might have been trying to keep safe from the world above. The precision of these ancient tunnels is where the mystery truly deepens. We find passageways carved through miles of solid rock that run perfectly straight, a feat that seems to defy the tools we believe were available. How did they maintain such unwavering lines in total darkness without the laser guides and advanced surveying equipment we rely on today? This points to a profound and perhaps lost understanding of geometry and alignment, but the engineering marvels do not stop there. Many of these complexes feature sophisticated passive ventilation systems. These were not simple holes, but carefully engineered shafts that utilized differences in air pressure and temperature to create a natural, constant flow of fresh air, sustaining life hundreds of feet below the surface. It is a brilliant application of basic physics, creating an underground environment that could breathe. Even more intriguing are the precise alignments some tunnels have with celestial bodies or significant landmarks on the surface. Certain passageways might be oriented to capture the light of the solstice sun or point directly toward a sacred mountain peak. This implies the builders possessed a sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and a deep, sacred connection to their landscape, embedding that cosmic understanding directly into the earth. The most baffling aspect is that this advanced knowledge often appears in the archaeological record fully formed. We do not see a long, slow progression of trial and error, of failed tunnels and collapsed chambers. Instead, we see these complex systems executed with a confident mastery from the very beginning. Where did this complete package of engineering principles come from? It suggests the builders were working from a pre-existing, highly refined blueprint, a forgotten science of subterranean construction. This challenges the conventional timeline of human innovation, whispering of a legacy of knowledge so advanced and so essential that it was carved directly into the bedrock of the world, preserved in silence for millennia. These silent corridors did not maintain themselves. The true endurance of these underground worlds is revealed not in their initial construction, but in the quiet, relentless work of preservation that followed. Keeping miles of tunnels structurally sound, their air fresh, and their very existence a secret across hundreds of years would have required a silent, dedicated army of caretakers. We find clear evidence of this long-term commitment etched into the stone itself. Look closely at the walls of certain passages, and you might find sections where the original, weathered stonework is seamlessly patched with newer, distinctively different masonry. In other areas, ancient wooden support beams, worn by centuries of bearing immense weight, were carefully replaced, sometimes with stronger materials introduced in later eras. This is not random repair, it is systematic, knowledgeable maintenance. It reveals an unbroken chain of knowledge, a guild or a secret society of custodians who inherited the blueprint of this hidden world and took a sacred vow to protect it. Their work was a continuous, clandestine effort, a promise passed from one generation to the next. The sheer longevity of this commitment is staggering to contemplate. A single person might dedicate their life to a craft, but this was a societal promise that had to outlive empires, plagues, and wars on the surface. How was this knowledge transferred so perfectly and so secretly over so many generations? What profound purpose could justify such a sustained, multi-generational sacrifice? The custodians left no written records of their motives, only the physical evidence of their devotion in the strengthened arches and cleared air shafts. This silent maintenance is perhaps the most compelling argument for a coordinated effort that was not just about survival, but about preserving a legacy. It suggests that the true value of these tunnels was not merely their physical space, but the profound knowledge, the very secret they were built to protect. The walls were kept standing because the idea they contained was deemed eternal. Descending into the depths of Derinkuyu is like stepping into a world turned inside out. This is not a collection of caves, but a vertical city carved with breathtaking intention directly into the Anatolian rock. Think of an entire community, up to 20,000 people, living their lives completely hidden from the sun. The scale is almost beyond comprehension, with 18 discovered levels plunging deep into the earth, each one a testament to a society that thought in terms of centuries, not seasons. This was a fully functioning metropolis, complete with spaces for worship, education, and even the production of wine, all operating in a carefully engineered subterranean world. The presence of massive, circular stone doors, each weighing several hundred pounds and designed to roll shut from the inside, reveals a community that understood not just how to live underground, but how to defend it. These were not panicked people digging haphazard holes. They were master urban planners executing a grand, premeditated design. The logistics of sustaining such a large population in isolation are staggering. How did they manage air quality across so many levels, or ensure a clean, reliable water supply from deep underground wells? The entire complex functions as a single, breathing organism, a feat of social and engineering coordination that rivals the great cities built above ground. Derinkuyu stands as a silent, monumental argument, challenging our assumptions about the capabilities of ancient societies. It forces us to ask what they knew that we have since forgotten, and what they saw on the horizon that compelled them to build an entire world in reverse, a testament to planning on an almost unimaginable scale. The Hypogeum of Malta whispers of a different kind of coordination, one that wove together the physical and the spiritual with unnerving skill. Carved from the island's soft limestone over 4,000 years ago, this sprawling, three-level labyrinth is a world of shadows and silence. Unlike the defensive cities of Turkey, the Hypogeum served a dual purpose, functioning as both a profound sanctuary and a final resting place for many individuals. Its very existence speaks to a society that viewed the underworld not with fear, but as a sacred realm integral to their beliefs. But the true genius of this place is not merely in its carved halls, but in the way it was designed to be heard. Deep within the complex lies the chamber known as the Oracle Room. Here, a low voice spoken into a specific niche is not just contained, it is transformed. The sound is amplified and projected, its vibrations resonating through the stone, traveling up passageways and into distant rooms with startling clarity. This is not a happy accident of architecture. To achieve such a precise acoustic effect, the builders had to possess an intuitive, almost scientific understanding of sound waves, resonance, and the specific properties of their limestone canvas. They were not simply excavating rock, they were tuning it, engineering an entire subterranean structure to become a giant musical instrument or a spiritual amplifier. This represents a coordination that goes far beyond manual labor, merging technical mastery with ritual purpose. The very stones of the Hypogeum suggest that its creators coordinated not just their hands, but their minds and voices, designing an experience where sound itself was a sacred tool, connecting the living in one chamber with the echoes of the eternal in the next. The humid jungles of Vietnam conceal a different kind of underground marvel, one forged not in antiquity but in the intense pressures of modern conflict. The Cu Kai tunnels present a staggering example of coordination born from sheer necessity. This was not a single, static structure, but a living, expanding network that grew like a hidden root system beneath the feet of an opposing army. At its peak, this labyrinth stretched for over 150 miles, a secret city operating in plain sight, yet completely invisible from the air. Within its cramped, dark passages, an entire community functioned. There were field hospitals for the wounded, kitchens that could cook without revealing their location through smoke, and even carefully concealed command centers directing complex operations. Every single pound of earth removed had to be dispersed secretly, often into nearby rivers or hidden beneath dense foliage, to leave no trace of the massive construction happening below. The true marvel of Kukai is not just its scale, but the profound social organization it demanded. This was a community working as one, bound by a common cause and an unwavering commitment to secrecy. The effort required perfect trust and silent communication, where the sound of a single misplaced tool could mean discovery. How did they manage the immense psychological strain of living in such confined, dark spaces for months or even years on end? The tunnels stand as a powerful, more recent testament to what human beings can achieve when they are united by a powerful, shared purpose. They prove that the ability to coordinate on a massive scale underground is not a lost art of the ancient world, but a very real capability of the human spirit. This modern analog forces a difficult but important question. If a community under the direct and constant threat of modern warfare could accomplish this, what does that tell us about the motivations of those ancient builders? What kind of purpose, what level of shared belief could have possibly driven our ancestors to undertake projects of a similar, and in some cases even greater, scale without the immediate pressure of an invisible enemy? The echo from Vietnam's tunnels seems to answer back across the centuries, suggesting that the will to vanish beneath the earth is a profound and recurring chapter in the human story. The recurring architectural blueprint across continents whispers of a guiding intelligence, a hidden school of thought that transcended local cultures. Could the master key to this global coordination lie not with kings or empires, but with secret societies and mystery schools dedicated to preserving a lost science? For centuries, groups like the Freemasons have been linked to the principles of sacred geometry and the symbolic use of architectural tools, suggesting a lineage of builders who saw their craft as both a physical and a spiritual pursuit. This theory proposes an intellectual elite, a scattered cabal of initiates who carried a profound understanding of the Earth's energies and the mathematical laws that govern stable construction. Their knowledge would have been esoteric, meaning it was reserved for a select few, passed down through carefully guarded oral traditions and initiation rites. This was not common knowledge, but a specialized science of geomancy, the art of aligning structures with the perceived spiritual and physical currents of the land itself. Imagine these master architects as hidden consultants, traveling across vast distances or seeding their knowledge through local disciples. They would not necessarily rule, but rather advise, providing the sophisticated blueprints for ventilation, structural integrity, and celestial alignment that we find repeated in these tunnels. Their shared dogma would have been a unified theory of how to build in harmony with the unseen forces of the world, a philosophy so valuable it was worth concealing from the uninitiated. This idea of a guiding hand elegantly explains the puzzling similarities, from the specific angles of arches to the placement of air shafts, as the signature of a single, sophisticated methodology applied worldwide. It transforms the mystery from one of random convergence to one of deliberate, secret dissemination. If such a network of adepts truly existed, their greatest legacy would not be a written text, but the silent, enduring stone of these underground cities, a testament to a coordination that was philosophical before it was ever physical. The very stones seem to ask if we are looking not at independent inventions, but at the scattered chapters of a single, forgotten book of worldcraft, its pages written in tunnels and tombs. The very ground these builders chose speaks volumes about their intent. Their selection of location was a precise science, far removed from a simple search for soft earth. They consistently sought out specific geological formations, areas of stable, workable rock like tuff or limestone that could be carved yet would maintain structural integrity for millennia. This was not just about finding a place to dig, it was about finding a partner in the stone itself, a foundation that would cooperate in their grand endeavor. But the logic of placement often extends beyond mere practicality. Researchers have noted a curious pattern where these subterranean sites align with what are often called ley lines, hypothetical alignments of ancient and sacred sites across the landscape. Whether these lines represent actual energy paths or simply a shared human impulse for sacred geography, their correlation with tunnel locations is compelling. It suggests the builders were mapping something invisible, coordinating their constructions with a perceived spiritual or energetic grid woven across the planet. This idea deepens when we find networks positioned directly over powerful underground water aquifers or in zones known for unusual magnetic activity. A hidden water source provided life, yes, but in many ancient traditions, flowing water was also seen as a conduit for spiritual energy. A magnetic anomaly might disrupt a compass, but it could also have been felt as a place of power, a spot where the veil between worlds was considered thin. This points to a world view where the physical and spiritual landscapes were one and the same. The coordination was not just between human hands, but between those hands and the very pulse of the earth. They were not simply exploiting the environment, they were engaging in a profound dialogue with it, selecting sites where the land itself was an active participant in their hidden world. The silent, enduring rock was not just their medium, it was their message, a testament to a forgotten harmony between humanity and a living, breathing planet. These silent stone walls hold more than just the echo of footsteps, they hold a message. Scratched into the rock, painted with ancient pigments, we find a language of symbols that transcends spoken words. A spiral might represent the journey of life or the turning of the cosmos. A zigzag could depict lightning, water, or the very energy of the earth. In some networks, these simple forms give way to intricate carvings of figures that seem otherworldly, perhaps deities or star beings engaged in cosmic events. This is not random graffiti, it is a deliberate visual code, a silent narrative left by the builders for those who could understand. The most compelling clue lies not in any single symbol, but in its repetition. The same spiral found deep in a Turkish tunnel appears on a rock face in a North American cavern. The same pattern of dots, representing a specific constellation, is carved into the walls of a South American complex and painted in a European one. This consistency across vast distances and cultures is staggering. It suggests that these symbols were not just local art, but part of a shared lexicon, a universal cosmological map that different cultures were all referencing. They were all reading from the same spiritual playbook, one that described the structure of the universe, the journey of the soul, and humanity's place within it all. Decoding this visual language is perhaps our greatest chance to understand the why. Was the spiral a symbol for the cyclical nature of time, prompting them to build shelters that would last through countless cycles? Did the depiction of a celestial event mark the underground chamber as a place to observe or honor that event? The art transforms these tunnels from mere shelters into profound philosophical statements. They were not just hiding from something, they were connecting to something, a deeper reality that they believed was best understood from within the sacred quiet of the earth. The walls are a manuscript written in stone, and we are only just beginning to learn how to read its first mysterious words. The most ambitious explanation for this global pattern points to a single, forgotten source. One compelling hypothesis suggests these intricate tunnels are not independent creations, but the scattered legacy of a highly advanced predecessor culture, a civilization whose name has been lost to time, surviving only in whispered legends like Atlantis or Lemuria. According to this view, a world-altering event, perhaps a dramatic shift in climate or a geological catastrophe, shattered this unified society. The survivors, scattered to the winds, would have carried with them fragments of a once great knowledge, the principles of subterranean engineering, sacred geometry, and celestial alignment. This theory elegantly explains why we see the same architectural solutions and symbolic languages appearing in cultures separated by oceans and millennia. They were not inventing from scratch but rebuilding from a shared, crumbling blueprint. The perfectly straight tunnels of Turkey and the resonant chambers of Malta are not coincidences but echoes. They are the cultural memories of a lost world, repurposed and adapted by their descendants. While mainstream archaeology often views this idea with skepticism, citing a lack of concrete evidence for such a civilization, its narrative power is undeniable. It asks us to consider a history far more dramatic and interconnected than our textbooks describe, a story of a global community that faced an existential threat and left its final testament not in towering pyramids, but in the safe, deep quiet of the earth. This possibility reframes the entire mystery, transforming these tunnels from isolated shelters into the last surviving pieces of a global puzzle, urging us to look at the ancient world not as a collection of separate cultures, but as the inheritors of a common and profoundly sophisticated past. Yet a compelling counter-argument exists, one that grounds this mystery in the universal logic of human innovation. Skeptics point to a powerful principle known as convergent evolution, where entirely separate species independently develop similar traits to solve identical environmental challenges. In the same way, different human societies facing universal pressures like the threat of conflict, dramatic shifts in climate, or the urgent need to protect scarce resources, could have all arrived at the same brilliant, pragmatic answer: to move underground. The human mind, when presented with a life or death problem, possesses a remarkable ability to devise parallel solutions. The fundamental physics of stability, for instance, dictate that a corbelled arch is one of the simplest and strongest ways to span a ceiling without modern materials. The need for fresh air underground will always lead an engineer, whether in Turkey or Peru, to devise a ventilation shaft that exploits differences in temperature and pressure. This perspective sees not a hidden blueprint, but the brilliant, independent spark of human ingenuity flashing again and again across the globe. It attributes the coordination we see not to a shared secret, but to the shared and inescapable demands of survival. It is a humbling reminder that great minds, when confronted by the same fundamental challenges, can and often do think alike, even when separated by oceans and centuries. This explanation asks us to consider whether we are seeing the work of a single lost teacher, or simply the timeless, repeating pattern of humanity's resilient and resourceful spirit. These hidden pathways could have functioned as the financial backbone of a secret ancient world. Official histories tell us of trade conducted along established roads and rivers, subject to the watchful eyes of kings and tax collectors. But what if a parallel system thrived in the shadows, moving goods and knowledge far from the light of day? A network of secure tunnels would have been the perfect conduit for this clandestine commerce. Think of commodities like rare spices, exquisite silks, or revolutionary metalworking techniques being transferred between regions that were officially rivals or even enemies. This was not just about avoiding tariffs, it was about safeguarding the very lifeblood of innovation and wealth from the instability and conflict of the surface world. The existence of such a system implies a level of trust and cooperation between groups we previously believed were entirely separate. Merchants, artisans, and perhaps even diplomats from different cultures would have needed to establish secret agreements, shared codes of conduct, and secure methods of communication to keep this underground exchange flowing. This reveals a shadow economy, a hidden layer of international relations that operated independently of palaces and treaties. It is akin to the dark web of the ancient world, a hidden network where the rules of the surface did not apply and the most valuable assets could move in silence. This forces us to reconsider the dynamics of ancient power. Perhaps the true influencers were not always the monarchs on their thrones, but the unseen network of individuals who controlled the flow of information and resources beneath everyone's feet. The grand bazaars and royal courts we read about may have been only the public face of an economy, while the real deals, the exchanges that truly shaped the course of cultures, were being struck in the quiet dark far below. Perhaps the deepest mystery lies not in how they built, but in why they chose to live within the earth. Beyond immediate threats of conflict or climate, the very act of descending held profound psychological and spiritual meaning across countless cultures. The world below was widely seen as a sacred realm, the womb of the Earth Mother, a place of primordial darkness from which all life emerged and to which it would eventually return. To build a home, there was to reconnect with this powerful source, to seek spiritual rebirth and initiation into deeper mysteries. The journey underground mirrored an internal journey, a descent into the self to confront shadows and emerge transformed. This was not an act of fear, but one of profound seeking. The shared, monumental labor of carving out these spaces would have forged an unbreakable social bond. Imagine an entire community united by a single, generational project, where every individual's effort contributed to a collective sanctuary. This shared purpose, this common struggle against the stone, would have defined their identity far more powerfully than any surface conflict. They were not just building a shelter, they were physically manifesting their shared beliefs, literally carving their worldview into the bedrock of the planet. The coordinated effort itself became a continuous ritual, a daily reaffirmation of their connection to each other and to the earth that held them. The silence and separation of the underground world would have intensified this group consciousness, insulating them from the distractions of the surface and focusing their collective mind on what they held most sacred. Their survival was not just physical, it was cultural and spiritual. They were protecting the very soul of their community by placing it in the one place they believed was eternal, safe, and deeply connected to the forces of creation. The tunnels, therefore, stand as a testament to a fundamental human need to find meaning in the dark as well as the light, and to build a legacy that would endure not just in memory, but in the living stone itself. The quiet hum of modern technology is now mapping the silent darkness of the past. Ground-penetrating radar sends invisible pulses into the earth, painting digital pictures of hollow spaces hidden deep below. LIDAR, or light detection and ranging, uses lasers from aircraft to strip away dense forest canopies, revealing the subtle, telltale depressions and entrances of tunnels long since forgotten. From the orbit of satellites, sophisticated sensors detect minute variations in soil moisture and plant health, hinting at the vast, man-made voids that disrupt the natural landscape below. Each new scan, each new digital survey, adds another crucial piece to a global puzzle we are only just beginning to assemble. These tools are our 21st century shovels, allowing us to explore this hidden world without ever moving a single stone. The revolution is happening not in the dirt but in the data. A recent survey in Turkey, for instance, revealed an entirely new level to the already immense Derinkuyu complex, a discovery made from the surface. In the jungles of Central America, LIDAR has exposed extensive subterranean pathways connecting pyramid complexes that were once thought to be separate cities. Every new confirmation of a tunnel network, often stretching far beyond previous estimates, forces a profound realization. What we have physically explored and walked through so far, the sites that fill our history books, might represent only the very tip of a colossal, planet-spanning iceberg. The digital age is pulling back the curtain on a hidden dimension of human history, illuminating shadows that have remained untouched for thousands of years and suggesting that the true scale of our ancestors' coordinated endeavor is far grander than we ever dared to believe. This hidden world beneath our feet presents a profound ethical challenge for our modern era. With every new discovery made by ground-penetrating radar or satellite imaging, we are faced with a difficult choice. Do we excavate these pristine time capsules, potentially causing irreversible damage in our quest for knowledge, or do we leave them sealed and undisturbed, preserving their secrets but also their integrity for future generations? This is not a simple question of science. It is a delicate coordination between modern ethics, academic curiosity, and deep cultural respect. The very act of exploration today requires a new kind of collaboration, one that spans governments, academic institutions, and perhaps most importantly, the living descendants of the ancient builders. Who truly holds the right to these discoveries? Is it the nation where the land lies, the international researchers who provide the technology, or the indigenous communities for whom these sites are not ruins but sacred ancestral homes? Consider the complex dilemma of a sealed chamber, untouched for millennia. Breaking its seal introduces modern air, humidity, and light, which can swiftly degrade fragile organic artifacts like textiles or wood, turning a moment of discovery into one of permanent loss. Yet, leaving it sealed might mean we never learn a crucial piece of the human story. There is no easy answer. Navigating this requires a global conversation, a coordinated effort to balance our insatiable hunger for understanding with a solemn duty to protect. It forces us to see these tunnels not merely as archaeological sites, but as fragile legacies. The greatest coordination of all may not be in how these places were built, but in how we, as a global community, choose to honor them now. Our approach will become part of their story, a new layer of meaning written not in stone, but in the respect we show for the silent world below. The myths our ancestors told around flickering fires may hold the oldest clues to this mystery. Across the globe, from the frozen north to the warm Mediterranean, cultures that never met described strikingly similar realms beneath their feet. The Norse spoke of Svartalfheima, a vast, organized world of mines and forges run by the dwarves. Hindu traditions describe Patala, a multi-leveled underworld of immense beauty and wealth. The Greeks envisioned Hades not as a formless pit, but as a structured kingdom with rivers, gates, and specific domains. These were not imagined as chaotic voids, but as intricate, functioning societies operating just beyond sight. The consistency is startling. Why would so many separate peoples with no shared language all invent the idea of a sophisticated, inhabited world below? This goes far beyond a simple fear of the dark. It suggests a deep, shared memory, a story so foundational it was woven into the very fabric of their collective identity. Could these legends be the ghostly echo of a real, physical truth? Perhaps the great subterranean cities like Derinkuyu were not just forgotten but remembered, their true nature fading over centuries into the language of gods and spirits. The physical tunnels are the bones of this story, and the myths are its enduring soul. This narrative thread connects the cold, hard evidence of archaeology with the warm, living breath of human storytelling. When a Greek poet spoke of the river Styx, was he recounting a distorted memory of a real, hidden underground waterway his ancestors knew? When a Norse saga described the master smiths of the deep earth, Was it a cultural recollection of the incredible metalworking that must have occurred in those hidden forges? Folklore, then, might be our most ancient historical record, a collective memory passed down through generations long before the invention of writing. It transforms these tunnels from mere engineering marvels into places of profound cultural meaning. They were not just shelters, they were the literal foundation of a worldview, a hidden half of the human experience that was so important. Our ancestors refused to let it be forgotten, preserving its memory in the only way they could, through the timeless power of the story. The hands that carved these endless corridors were not just moving rock, they were building a legacy. So who were these workers, and what compelled them to dedicate their lives to such a monumental task? The easy answer, the one often repeated, is slave labor, a narrative of whips and chains forcing a massive workforce into the dark. Yet the evidence within the tunnels themselves complicates this simple story. We find no signs of the restraints or harsh living quarters you would associate with a captive, unwilling population. Instead, we see signs of a deeply organized, highly skilled endeavor. A more plausible explanation is a system known as corvée labor, a form of tax paid not with gold or grain, but with time and muscle. In this model, every family in a community might be obligated to contribute a certain number of days per season to a public works project, a shared duty for the common good. This was not slavery, but a social contract, a coordinated effort where everyone had a role to play in ensuring the safety and continuity of the entire group. But the coordination might reach even deeper than social obligation. Imagine if the work was not seen as a chore, but as a sacred calling. What if the master builders, the engineers who understood the geometry of arches and the flow of air, were a revered class, their knowledge passed from parent to child as a holy trust? Their labor was not coerced, it was an honor, a spiritual practice etched into stone. The intricate carvings and symbolic art found in these spaces were not the work of broken spirits, but of focused, devoted minds. The very precision of the tunnel speaks of pride in one's craft, a skill honed over a lifetime. This understanding fundamentally changes the nature of the society we are envisioning. A community bound by devotion and shared purpose can achieve far more than one driven by fear alone. The social cohesion required to sustain this work for generations points to a collective belief so powerful it could literally move mountains. The hands that built these tunnels tell a story not of oppression but of profound unity, a story written not in records but in the silent, enduring proof of what people can accomplish when they are truly united. The air deep within a mountain should be still and suffocating, yet in these ancient complexes it was perpetually fresh. This miracle was achieved through passive ventilation, a brilliant manipulation of basic physics that required no moving parts. The builders understood that warm air rises and cool air sinks. They engineered their underground cities with this simple truth as their blueprint. Two types of shafts were carved, one reaching down to the lowest chambers where the air was cool and dense, and another extending up to the surface where the air was warmer. The temperature difference created a constant, gentle current, a natural breathing mechanism for the stone itself. Cool air would be drawn in from the lower shafts, flowing through the inhabited spaces, while the warmed, stale air was pushed out through the upper vents. This was not a hopeful guess, it was precise environmental engineering, a coordination with the invisible forces of nature that kept thousands of people alive in the deep dark. We see this same principle at work in modern green architecture, where buildings are designed to breathe naturally, a rediscovery of a science mastered millennia ago. The genius extends to the management of another vital resource, water. Far from being damp tombs, these places maintained a delicate balance, channeling away seeping groundwater while simultaneously capturing and storing every precious drop for sustenance. Intricate networks of carved channels line the floors and walls, directing moisture into deep, waterproof cisterns. These were not just buckets in a cave, they were sophisticated water harvesting systems that filtered and preserved a clean supply, often tapped by wells that descended from central courtyards deep within the complex. To provide fresh air and clean water miles underground represents a profound harmony with the environment. The builders were not fighting against the earth, they were listening to it, learning its rhythms, and collaborating with its fundamental laws to create a sanctuary that was not just safe, but truly alive. This mastery of life support systems stands as a silent testament to a forgotten age of applied science, where survival was an art form, and the greatest tool was a deep, intuitive understanding of the world they sought to shelter from. The builders did not just look down into the earth, they also looked up to the stars. Deep within these subterranean worlds, a narrow entrance shaft might be perfectly angled so that on just one day of the year, the light of the rising solstice sun pierces the absolute darkness, illuminating a specific carving on the far wall for a fleeting, brilliant moment. This was no accident, it was a deliberate act of cosmic alignment, a way of bringing the vast cycles of the heavens into the silent heart of the underground. These tunnels functioned as more than shelters, they were intricate calendars carved in stone. The passage of time was not measured in days, but in the slow, predictable dance of celestial bodies. A star cluster appearing at the end of a perfectly straight corridor could signal the start of the planting season for those living deep below. The winter solstice sunbeams striking an altar marked the turning point, the promise of the sun's return. This profound connection reveals a society that saw its own rhythms as inseparable from the greater universe. Their coordination was not merely social or defensive, it was cosmological. They were actively integrating their hidden existence with the fundamental order they observed in the sky. This practice appears across the globe, from ancient sites in the Americas to those in Europe and the Middle East. Different cultures, who we believe had no contact, all felt the same powerful urge to mirror the cosmos in their subterranean architecture. It speaks to a universal human understanding, a shared recognition that they were part of a grand, interconnected system. The very ground beneath their feet was purposefully connected to the infinite expanse above, suggesting that for these builders, true safety and meaning were found not in hiding from the world, but in aligning with its deepest, most sacred rhythms. The tunnel was not an escape from the cosmos, but a doorway to it. The echoing silence of these abandoned cities is perhaps the most haunting part of the mystery. We find evidence of sophisticated, long-term habitation and then a seemingly coordinated departure. The massive stone doors are left open, the intricate ventilation shafts fall quiet, and the carefully maintained passageways are left to the dust. What could cause an entire society to walk away from a masterpiece of engineering that represented generations of their collective labor and sacrifice? The historical record offers no clear answers, only a series of quiet possibilities. A devastating illness could have swept through the population, leaving too few survivors to maintain the complex social structure required for life underground. Perhaps a slow, generational cultural shift occurred, where the younger population no longer saw the value in a life beneath the earth, choosing instead to build their futures entirely under the sun. Another theory points to a successful invasion, not one that breached the tunnels, but one that so thoroughly controlled the surface world that the people inside were starved out or negotiated a surrender, leaving their sanctuary behind. The most puzzling aspect is the lack of chaos. In many sites, there are no signs of a violent end, no evidence of a final, desperate stand. It appears to have been a deliberate, organized exodus. This suggests the decision to leave was as coordinated as the effort to build. The master coordinators, in their final act, may have quietly sealed certain chambers and simply walked away, taking their most vital secrets with them. Their legacy is not one of ruin, but of a profound and deliberate silence, a question mark carved into the bedrock. The empty tunnels stand as a testament not to a failure, but to a completed purpose, a mission we can no longer decipher. What final chapter did they know that we have yet to uncover? The stone itself may hold the final secret. Within the deep chambers of certain tunnel networks, researchers have noted peculiar anomalies. The walls are sometimes lined with unusual metallic ores or crystalline minerals, substances that seem deliberately chosen rather than randomly occurring. In other locations, sensitive equipment detects faint, persistent electromagnetic fields, subtle energies that the surrounding rock should not produce. These quiet, consistent readings hint at something beyond simple shelter. Some researchers propose a far more ambitious purpose for these global networks, suggesting they were not just living spaces, but components in a vast, forgotten power system. This theory of energy harvesting points to a coordination aimed at tapping the very pulse of the planet. The builders, according to this view, understood that the Earth is a dynamic, living entity, crisscrossed with natural energy currents known as telluric flows. These subtle electrical currents move through the ground and water, and the strategic placement of many tunnel complexes along geological fault lines and specific mineral deposits could have been no accident. A fault line is not just a crack in the earth, it is a conduit for immense subterranean forces. What if these tunnels, with their specific mineral linings and resonant chambers, were designed to act as a sort of acupuncture for the planet, gently drawing upon this natural, limitless power? The purpose of such a technology is wide open to interpretation. Was it a source of clean, ambient energy to light the perpetual dark, perhaps powering unseen processes or even fostering plant growth in vast underground gardens? Could certain resonant chambers, like the Oracle Room in Malta, have used this harnessed energy to amplify sound or consciousness for spiritual practices, transforming geological power into a tool for ritual? This idea pushes the boundaries of our understanding, framing the ancient builders not as primitive survivors, but as master geologists and engineers who had learned to collaborate with the planet on an energetic level. While mainstream science remains skeptical, citing a lack of definitive proof, the physical clues within the stone are difficult to entirely dismiss. The strange mineral linings, the persistent electromagnetic whispers, and the precise placement along the Earth's energetic meridians all point toward a forgotten science. This theory suggests the ultimate coordination was not just between human societies, but between humanity and the hidden energies of the world they inhabited. The tunnels, then, might be the weathered remnants of a sophisticated technology, one that saw the Earth not as a resource to be mined, but as a partner to be heard. The walls of these ancient tunnels were not merely silent barriers, they were designed to sing. In the profound stillness of the underground world, sound was not an afterthought, it was a fundamental architectural element, a tool to shape the very experience of being deep within the Earth. The Oracle Room in Malta's Hypogeum stands as a stunning example of this auditory art. A word spoken in a low voice into a specific niche does not just echo, it is amplified and transformed, its vibrations channeled through the limestone to emerge with startling clarity in chambers far removed. This was no fortunate accident of excavation. It is the signature of a culture that possessed a deep, intuitive mastery of acoustics, understanding how to carve stone to manipulate sound waves with precision. This mastery suggests a purpose far beyond simple communication, Imagine standing in that resonant chamber, your own voice returning to you not as a faint copy, but as a powerful, enveloping presence. The effect is deeply psychological, creating a sense of connection to something larger than oneself. Researchers have proposed that specific resonant frequencies, the kind these chambers were engineered to produce, could have profound effects on the human mind and body. Gentle, low-frequency vibrations can induce states of deep calm and focused awareness, slowing the heartbeat and quieting mental chatter. In such an environment, a simple chant or the steady rhythm of a drum could become a powerful tool for collective meditation or ceremonial practice, synchronizing the brainwaves of everyone present into a shared, tranquil state. This auditory coordination would have transformed the darkness from a place of potential fear into a sanctuary for inner exploration. The tunnels became immersive, multi-sensory instruments, where the very air seemed alive with purposeful sound. This was not just a shelter for the body, but a carefully crafted environment for the mind and spirit, a place where the community could literally feel its unity resonating through the stone. The builders did not just create a space to be seen, they created a space to be heard and felt, proving their coordination extended to the most invisible and profound forces of the human experience. Pinpointing the age of these tunnels is one of the most frustrating challenges researchers face. You hold a piece of carved stone in your hand, but its story is locked away, resisting our most advanced scientific inquiries. Conventional dating methods fall short in this silent world. Radiocarbon dating requires organic material, something often absent in these sterile, rock-hewn passages. Even when charcoal or ancient tools are found, they might only tell us when the last people were there, not when the first chisel struck the stone. The rock itself has no carbon to date, and the tunnels themselves as structures are nearly impossible to assign a single birth date. This creates a profound chronological blur. We find clear evidence that a network was first carved by one culture, then expanded centuries later by another, and perhaps used as a storage cellar by a third group 1,000 years after that. Each culture left its own mark, its own pottery shards and tool styles, creating a compressed timeline where distinct historical layers are fused together in the darkness. Who, then, were the original architects, the brilliant masterminds who first envisioned a city beneath the earth and possessed the unified knowledge to begin its construction, are hidden behind these later additions. Their identity is the ghost in the machine. Without a firm date, we cannot connect these projects to a known empire or a specific historical event. Were they the work of a culture we know well, acting in a way we never understood, or does their existence point to a completely unknown chapter in human history, a period of coordination that predates our current historical maps? The stone keeps its calendar secret, forcing us to question not just how they built, but when, and what was happening in the world above that compelled such a unified, global response deep below. Even in the darkness, social status left its indelible mark. The very architecture of these subterranean cities speaks of a structured society, a hierarchy carved directly into the stone. You can walk from a spacious, high-ceilinged chamber, adorned with intricate symbolic carvings and positioned near a fresh air shaft, into a cramped, low corridor with rough, unfinished walls just a few steps away. This stark contrast was not an accident of excavation, it was a deliberate design. These distinct zones reveal a coordinated system of social classes, a blueprint of who held influence and who performed the labor, even in a place built for collective safety. The larger, more comfortable spaces, often centrally located and with sophisticated acoustics, were likely reserved for community leaders, spiritual figures, or those with specialized knowledge. Their proximity to key resources like air and water was a privilege of their standing, Meanwhile, the vast network of smaller, interconnected rooms and narrow passages would have housed the artisans, farmers, and laborers whose coordinated effort made the entire complex possible. This architectural stratification tells a profound story. It suggests that the unity required to build these places did not erase social distinctions, but rather incorporated them into the survival plan. The society below was a mirror of the society above, its hierarchies and roles preserved even when the community turned inward for protection. The coordination was so complete that it accounted for the entire social fabric, designating not just where people would sleep, but where they would reside within an invisible but powerfully understood structure. This hidden blueprint forces us to reconsider the nature of their unity. It was not a utopian equality, but a highly organized collaboration where every individual had a designated place and purpose, their social standing literally set in stone deep within the heart of the earth. The sealed doorways are the most haunting part of the mystery. Across continents, we find the same deliberate act of closure. The massive rolling stones in Turkey were not just shut, they were locked in place from the inside, the mechanisms then hidden. In South America, the entrances to deep tunnels were filled with rubble and then carefully camouflaged to blend perfectly with the surrounding cliff face. This was not the work of invaders who had breached the defenses. The evidence points to the inhabitants themselves, the very people who called these places home, as the ones who performed this final, coordinated ritual. Why would a society turn its back on generations of labor and sacrifice, on a masterpiece of engineering that represented their ultimate security? It suggests a profound collective decision, a planned exodus where leaving was not an act of defeat, but a final, calculated phase of their grand design. The sealing was not a panicked retreat, but a deliberate act of preservation, an attempt to hide their greatest achievement from the eyes of the future. This coordinated closure feels like a message sent through time. Were they protecting the knowledge within from some impending cataclysm they anticipated? A threat so total that even their underground sanctuary was no longer safe? Or were they, perhaps, fulfilling a sacred promise to return the sanctuary to the earth itself, to let the stone reclaim its silence after it had served its purpose? The carefully placed final stone in every hidden doorway stands as a silent testament to a unified will, a community that walked away together, leaving behind not ruins but a perfectly preserved question. What did they know that we have yet to understand? The quiet they left behind is not an empty silence but one filled with intention. The stone doors may have been sealed, but the stories they held could not be contained. These vast underground complexes left such a powerful impression on the landscape and the human psyche that their memory began to seep into the legends of the cultures that came after. The physical coordination of the builders gave way to a different kind of connection, a coordination across time through the power of narrative. Consider the grand medieval castles of Europe, with their whispered tales of secret passages and hidden escape routes leading away from the dungeons. These were not just practical features, they became central to the lore of the castle itself, a direct echo of that ancient blueprint for secret movement and hidden safety. In the rich folklore of the East, from the Himalayas to the deserts of Persia, stories persist of entire magical cities hidden deep within mountains, accessible only through concealed entrances known to a chosen few. The legendary kingdom of Shambhala, a paradise concealed from a troubled world, mirrors the very purpose of those real subterranean refuges. This was not mere coincidence. It was cultural osmosis, where the physical reality of a forgotten technology slowly transformed into the stuff of myth and archetype. The idea of a coordinated, hidden network became a permanent fixture in our collective imagination, a story we tell ourselves again and again about a secret world operating just beneath the surface of our own. These legends are the ghost in the machine of history, the subtle, lingering evidence that the true legacy of those tunnel builders was not just in the stone they moved, but in the timeless stories they inspired, ensuring their hidden coordination would be remembered long after the last caretaker was gone. That ancient impulse to build downward is far from a forgotten relic. It lives on today, echoing in the concrete and steel of our modern subterranean world. The principles of coordination and large-scale planning perfected by our ancestors are now being applied to solve the pressing challenges of our own era. Look at the vast data centers being built deep within mountains, where the stable, cool environment of solid rock provides a natural and energy-efficient home for the servers that power our digital lives. These are the modern equivalent of those ancient storage chambers, safeguarding not grain or water, but the most valuable resource of our time, information. Or consider the immense metro systems that thread beneath our great cities, intricate networks of tunnels that move millions of people each day, a logistical ballet that requires the same kind of generational planning and social coordination as the underground cities of old. We even see this legacy in the design of disaster bunkers and secure seed vaults, built to ensure continuity in the face of potential global challenges. This is not mere coincidence. It is a testament to the timeless logic of using the Earth itself as a shield and a resource. Our crowded, resource-conscious world is rediscovering the profound wisdom of looking down for solutions. We are, in a very real sense, continuing the work those ancient engineers began, learning from their successes in ventilation, structural integrity, and long-term planning. The past's coordination is directly shaping our future, proving that some human challenges and the brilliant solutions they inspire are truly eternal. The stones are speaking, and they are telling a more collaborative story. When we synthesize all the evidence from the echoing chambers of Malta to the vertical cities of Turkey and the hidden highways of the Americas, a revolutionary picture of the ancient world comes into focus. This was not a planet of isolated, primitive cultures slowly stumbling toward civilization. Instead, the global distribution of these tunnels suggests a world humming with a level of interconnection we are only beginning to appreciate. The shared architectural blueprints, the universal symbolic language, and the consistent application of advanced physics point toward a foundational layer of shared knowledge, a common technological and spiritual heritage that transcended local traditions. This network is the hard evidence of a society that was far more technologically adept and socially complex than our standard timelines suggest. They were not just building shelters, they were executing a grand, unified strategy for long-term survival and cultural preservation on a planetary scale. This demands a fundamental rethinking of the narrative of human progress. Our traditional model, a simple upward climb from primitivism to modernity, is shattered by these subterranean wonders. The evidence does not point to a linear progression, but to a series of brilliant peaks of achievement, perhaps driven by a shared, forgotten necessity. What if our ancestors were not just surviving, but thriving in a coordinated manner, applying a sophisticated science of the Earth that we have since lost and are now slowly rediscovering? The very existence of these tunnels suggests that collaboration, not just conflict, was a primary engine of ancient innovation. This new model presents a past where knowledge flowed more freely, where societies were capable of projects spanning generations, and where the true measure of a civilization was not just its monuments under the sun, but the enduring legacy it carved into the safe, silent dark below. Of course, the evidence is compelling, but a truly honest exploration requires that we also listen to the skeptical voice. This perspective urges caution, reminding us that our modern minds are wired to find patterns, to connect dots and weave narratives from the scattered threads of the past. What we perceive as a grand, coordinated blueprint could, in fact, be a series of brilliant but entirely independent inventions, each culture facing the universal and pressing need for security, storage, or sacred space, may have simply arrived at the same logical conclusion using the tools and knowledge available to them. The human spirit is remarkably resilient and inventive when survival is at stake. The similar arch, the necessary air shaft, the hidden entrance, these could all be the natural, parallel answers to the same fundamental questions posed by life underground. A balanced view does not dismiss the mystery, but it does demand more than just pattern recognition. It calls for verifiable, concrete evidence that can definitively link these separate worlds, evidence that so far remains elusive. This healthy skepticism is not the enemy of discovery, but its essential partner. It ensures that our sense of wonder is guided by reason, and that our journey into the past is built on a foundation as solid as the rock these tunnels are carved from. The true challenge, then, is to hold both possibilities in mind, the breathtaking possibility of a lost global connection and the humbling reality of humanity's independent, recurring genius. The greatest discoveries may still be hidden in plain sight, waiting just beneath our feet. We are entering a new golden age of exploration, not with shovels and torches, but with quantum sensors and artificial intelligence that can peer through solid ground. This is not the end of the story, but a thrilling new beginning. Imagine algorithms analyzing satellite data to find subtle patterns in vegetation that hint at vast, unseen voids below, or ground-penetrating radar so advanced it can map an entire subterranean city in a single scan without ever breaking the surface. The unexplored rainforests, the remote deserts, and even the deep ocean floors hold the potential for networks that could make our current understanding seem like a preliminary sketch. These future finds will likely reveal an even grander scale of coordination, connecting continents in ways we have only dared to hypothesize. The true challenge and the ultimate coordination will be a global one. It will require a seamless partnership between archaeologists, geologists, data scientists, and local communities, all working together to interpret these new wonders with both cutting-edge technology and deep cultural respect. This international, interdisciplinary mission is our generation's great undertaking, a collective effort to finally listen to the full story the stones have been trying to tell us for millennia. The next chapter of human history is not in a book but buried in the quiet dark, and we are only just learning how to read it. These hidden corridors are far more than ancient curiosities. They stand as a monumental testament to a forgotten chapter of human ingenuity and a profound capacity for collaboration that we are only just beginning to comprehend. The sheer existence of these networks fundamentally challenges our deepest assumptions about ancient isolation and primitive technology. They paint a picture of a past rich with unexpected coordination, a symphony of social unity and technical mastery that resonates across continents and through millennia. As we reflect on these subterranean marvels, we are reminded that our history is not a simple, linear story, but a complex and deeply layered puzzle, with entire chapters written in the silent language of stone. The greatest secret these tunnels may hold is not a fabled treasure of gold or jewels, but a far more valuable lesson about the collaborative potential of humanity itself. It is a legacy of what we can achieve when we are united by a shared purpose and a common vision for survival. What other world-altering secrets are still buried, patiently waiting in the dark to reshape our entire understanding of the human story? We would love to hear your thoughts and personal theories in the comments below. And if you are ready for more journeys into the deepest mysteries of our past, Be sure to subscribe for our next exploration.